Welcome, everyone. My name is Gisli Olofsson, and I'm the Emergency Response Director for an organization called NetHope. Not all of you may know NetHope, but it was founded 10 years ago by some of the leading NGOs in the world, and today we have 32 NGOs as members. And our focus is on the use of information and communication technology. And today I want to talk to you about information. And I want to talk to you start by talking about two different paradoxes that we face. One is the fact that in the immediate aftermath of a disaster, we are always looking for information, yet we can't find it. But the truth is that actually a lot of that information already exists, but it's stuck within silos within different organizations. A second paradox that we face is that all of a sudden in the last few years, through things like social media and social networks, we now have an information overflow, but we don't know how to actually process it and how to analyze it and actually use it for something. But as with everything, the paradoxes and the challenges we have also create opportunities for us. And it's those opportunities that I want to focus on today when I talk about what it is that we can be doing. On January 12th last year, the world woke up to an earthquake in Haiti. And while some of us, like me, jumped on the next plane there to go and respond, there were also a different set of people who started responding. And those are groups that I have chosen to call digital volunteers. These digital volunteers started gathering. This picture is taken in Tufts University in Boston, where initially 12 of them came together to start focusing on what they could do with all the information that was coming in through social media, through traditional media, and so on. Over the next few days after this community actually grew to over a few thousand volunteers around the world. And with the help of some technology groups, both open source and others, they actually put up a system through which the affected community could start sending SMSs about their needs. And these are some of the main words that came in. 80,000 of those messages that came in over the first 3 weeks of the disaster. But here's another problem they faced. Most of those messages were actually not in English. They were in Creole. So how do you actually process something in a language that they didn't understand? Well, that's where they started working with the Haitian diaspora around the world, who really wanted to help, and through their local knowledge of the language, of where everything was and so on, they actually were able to map over 3,500 requests from over 100 sources and start putting them onto a map. And yesterday there was a talk around the work of the OpenStreetMaps people who actually created this fantastic set of data with all the streets and so on of Haiti. Well, that was also being done through the crowds of volunteers on the internet. Following Haiti, the UN Foundation and UN OCHA asked the Harvard Humanitarian Initiative to do a study and a report on the use of these digital volunteer groups. And they published a study earlier this year which pointed out that there were great opportunities for utilizing these volunteer crowds. But there were also challenges, and most of those challenges were around the fact of how do you integrate them into the process and how do you make sure that everybody's working together. Now, this same community that was working in Haiti worked on a number of disasters and crises following Haiti. And I want to point out one in particular, which is the Libya crisis. UNOCHA actually made a very bold move on March 1st when they sent out an email to what that community had put together, this group called the Standby Volunteer Task Force, and they sent an email saying, we don't understand what's happening within Libya because we don't have people on the ground. Could you help us try to create a situational overview of what's happening? So the group of over 100 volunteers, and it's grown now to I think about 400 volunteers, monitored traditional media, social media, and reports coming from multiple response organizations to create what became known as the Libya Crisis Map. And this map was actually publicly available online and still is at LibyaCrisisMap.net. But the interesting part was that through a password-protected access, the response organizations got real-time access to the data as opposed to the public map, which was 24 hours on a 24-hour delay. But they also got detailed information about what each report said, whereas the public version only had the summary. So a lot of process had gone into figuring out how do we take the initial reports, if they needed translations, how did we do translations, how do we monitor the media, and how do we, verify things, how do we geolocate things. So process had been put in place, so a lot of new things happened. And the humanitarian community really became behind this. And what we did was we reached out to both the major UN organizations that were working there as well as the NGO community that's part of NetHope. And we said, here's something that you can use, but it's not just something you can use as an information source, but we also think you should be providing information into it. And that's exactly what they're doing today, where they provide information from the ground and from their organizations directly into the system. But I don't want to just talk about response organizations because, great, we can find ways of leveraging crowds to do information sharing better between them. But where we really need to work hard on is how do we start actually sharing information with those that we're there to work for. Now, we're not there to work for the donors. We're not there to work for our organizations. We're there to work for the affected communities. And there are two things that have changed a lot in the last few years, and we saw this initially in Haiti, but it's exploding, especially this year, and that is the fact that today you have social media and mobile phone ownership way beyond anything we've ever seen before. And this is starting to create opportunities for us to communicate directly with the affected communities, but not just provide them with information and provide them with voice, but actually to provide them with a feedback loop of what we are doing. So we can start utilizing this technology as a feedback loop for our recovery efforts, for our relief efforts, and to actually see whether what we're doing is correct. But if we want to leverage this technology, and this is some of the lessons we learned from Libya and others, it is very important for us that we don't try doing this individually by ourselves, but that we collaborate. And we need to bring together the different types of organizations that you see here on the slide and get them to work together towards a common goal of improving information flow, not just between the NGOs, the UN, and so on, but also between us and the affected communities. And we at NetHope are working with a number of organizations and governments around the world on things related to this. And we're looking for those that are willing to participate and work with us on figuring out how do we take some of those recommendations from the Harvard study and from our experiences since Haiti, and take that forward and make sure that we make the affected communities part of our solution, and we start working together instead of individually fighting over information. Thank you. Questions? If not, then I'm going to be here next door or right here afterwards, if you don't want to ask them publicly. And how much time did I have left? 3 minutes. Wow, way too much. Quick question. We had a question. See?
What about the challenges in these crisis situations like Libya, like Syria, where there's huge control over communications, cellular communications, internet, social media sites? How do you overcome some of those challenges?
Some of the things that we see, especially in what's happening in North Africa and the Middle East and so on, is that technology seems to find ways through this. People find ways around the limitations, whether it's there being limited access to social media or other things. An example of this was Google released, I think about a month ago or so, the ability to call in through voice and provide Twitter messages through that. I mean, there are always ways in which technology or people find ways to share information, even though the governments may be trying to oppose it. I mean, take a look at what's happening in Myanmar, and there's a huge amount of information flowing there, even though mobile phone ownership and internet and so on is very limited. So I think from that perspective, people find ways if they want to. But where we kind of want to put our focus a bit on is, especially following a disaster like Haiti or Japan, what we're seeing is that the mobile networks are coming up much quicker. I mean, 3 days after the earthquake, I started getting SMSs in Haiti. 5 days after, I started making voice calls. 7 days after the earthquake, I left my sat phone. I stopped using it because it was much better quality on the voice. So that's telling us, we can start leveraging this. In Pakistan, we saw that people use GPRS as the way to connect to the internet as opposed to utilizing satellite connectivity. So in Japan, people could use 3G networks when SMS and voice did not work. So things are moving very quickly there, and it's creating opportunities for us to start leveraging those to reach the affected population and start actually involving them in what we're doing, and not just thinking and saying, oh, we should do this, we should do that, we should involve them. Further questions?
I was just wondering, in terms of the Libya map that you showed us, was there, you delayed it 24 hours, but did you have any problems with security issues and people trying to get into your data? Or
not that I know of. I know there was one issue where we didn't know who someone was that had access to the system, but I think it was simply that someone typed in the wrong name when they were creating a username. But apart from that, no, we did not see anybody trying to attack it or anything like that. But of course, that can be an issue. But the Standby Task Force put up actually a document on our blog around how these things are an issue that need to be addressed.
Right.
To be continued.